The flying machine hovers above Matthew, Michael, the soldier, and the jeep, and the pilot speaks through his radio. "What the hell's going on?" The soldier who stood with Michael and Matthew looks up and says, "No time to explain, just follow us." He then looks to Michael and Matthew and says, "Come on, you two." Michael and Matthew look at each other, too scared to speak in case they are heard. Matthew runs to the back of the armoured vehicle, followed by Michael. They get to the open doors, see the vehicle is full of soldiers sat down either side of the vehicle, holding their guns. The soldier who commanded Michael and Matthew to get into the vehicle gets back into the passenger seat of the vehicle and slams the door shut behind him. He looks over his shoulder to see Matthew and Michael still stood outside the vehicle looking in. The soldier shouts, "Well, come on, you two." They jump up into the vehicle and Matthew sits to the left side and Michael to the right. The soldier at the front of the vehicle then says, "Close the doors then." The flying machine flies off down the street. Michael and Matthew pull the doors of the vehicle shut and sit back down. The vehicle engine revs up and it pulls off down the street. Michael and Matthew, petrified, sit back straight, holding onto their guns, staring at each other. The soldier at the front of the vehicle speaks. "Right, we have a hostile situation on our hands. A few blocks from here, a hoplite scanned the building and found 4 people hiding inside it. One of those people is huge and seems they are armed with one of our jeep's guns. If they are the people who are responsible for the bodies in the subway, they know how to fight, so we have to approach them with caution. We have some units already there, but we'll be preparing to gas them out shortly. Our orders are to try and take them alive if possible." Michael turns away from the speaking soldier and looks at Matthew and says, "Damn, the others!" All of the soldiers turn to face Michael. Meanwhile, back at the building Tara and the group are hidden, a flying machine, like what Michael and Matthew saw earlier, is hovering outside. The flying machine the soldier referred to as a hoplite. An armoured vehicle is parked outside across the street, and the soldiers from within it are surrounding the building. Inside the building, the group are ducking below some glass windows which face out onto the street, with the armoured vehicle on and the hoplite above shining its lights into the building. Claudia then speaks. "Shoot, now what?" Tara replies, "Stay calm, how many of them is out there?" Eric goes to peek. Clunk, 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 clunk. Eric says, "What the?" Eric ducks back down and clutches onto his gun as 2 of the walking machines approach. Eric says, "We're surrounded." Twinkle grunts and turns anxiously and looks behind him, then turns to face the room behind them. Tara looks around anxiously at everyone. Twinkle growls and points his gun at the room behind. Then Claudia begins to panic as a beam of light passes through the room, illuminating it. The light goes away, but Tara says, "Everyone, stay down." The light shines back into the room and stays still, keeping the room lit. Then the hoplite turns on its speaker and a voice speaks. "You are surrounded. Come out and surrender yourselves." Claudia says anxiously, "Damn, damn, damn." The hoplite speaker speaks again. "You have 10 seconds to show yourselves. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Suddenly Claudia leaps up and begins to fire. She fires laser fire at the approaching soldiers and some small rockets. Twinkle roars. Twinkle leaps up, swinging the jeep gun into action. Eric and Tara join in the gunfight. Twinkle fires plasma shots at the hoplite, shooting out its lights and forcing it to retreat. Then he quickly turns his attention to the walking machines. The walking machines and soldiers return fire, and the group duck and dart around the windows as they continue the battle. Twinkle leaps up and shoots down a group of advancing soldiers, then fires 2 rockets at a walker machine, blowing it up. The second walker machine begins to retreat backwards, but fires a couple of rockets back. Twinkle ducks, and the rocket flies over his head and through the room and out the doorway, exploding in the next room. But the second rocket explodes against the wall Claudia is hid behind, sending her flying through the air and crashing against the wall behind her. She slumps unconscious to the floor. Twinkle then puts his gun down, crouches and runs over to Claudia. He picks her up and runs over to the left of the room and places her down. He kneels down and places his hands on her head. Tara and Eric continue the battle. Claudia opens her eyes and shakes her head and says, "Huh?" Twinkle removes his hand and then turns and picks up his gun and returns to the battle. Suddenly, a jeep screeches along and the room is illuminated again, and a second hoplite approaches, escorted by the first one. Tara shouts, "Shoot! Run!" Tara and Eric bolt for the door behind them. Claudia springs to her feet and joins them. Twinkle begins to walk backwards out of the room as he shoots out at the new unit of soldiers who've just arrived. The hoplites aim down at the windows and both fire a hail of bullets that tear through the building brickwork. Twinkle turns and retreats with the others who are running up a flight of stairs. Just as Twinkle is about to run up the stairs, a walking machine smashes through the wall behind him. Twinkle looks over his shoulder as the machine fires a rocket at him. Twinkle leaps to his right as a rocket flies past and blows up the stairs, setting the remaining ones on fire. As Twinkle crashes to the ground, he fires a rocket back at the walking machine, blowing it up. The machine stumbles back and begins to burn and spark furiously as the pilot falls out of the cockpit on fire, screaming. Then a door next to Twinkle bursts open and 3 soldiers burst in. Twinkle, still on the floor, presses a button on the gun and ignites the gun's flamethrower. A stream of fire engulfs the 3 soldiers and they all scream in pain as they walk around in flames. Twinkle gets to his feet and jumps up the burning, destroyed stairs. The others on the top floor of the building, catching their breath. Tara shouts out in pain, "Ah!" Eric replies, "What's wrong?" Tara replies, "I need Twinkle to do his magic again. It's my ankle. It's killing me." Claudia shouts out, "Damn, where is Twinkle?" They're at the beginning of a long corridor, which has open entrances to lots of rooms to the left and right. The rooms to the left are facing the street where the soldiers and army vehicles are below. The rooms are very derelict to the left, and parts of the floors and walls facing the streets are missing. Fire and commotion can be heard coming from the streets below, along with the droning of the hoverlights. Claudia runs down the corridor and comes to a locked door. She tries to open it, then force her way through it, but it's no good. She shouts to Eric and Tara, "The exit's blocked!" Eric helps Tara towards Claudia, then Twinkle emerges from the stairs behind them. He runs to the nearest doorway and aims his armoured gun towards the direction of the streets. As Tara and Eric make their way to Claudia, there's a great whooshing noise. They become illuminated as they stand in the doorway to a room to their left. Eric and Tara dive out of the way of the doorway and a beam of light as a hoverlight fires a stream of bullets at the doorway, sending plaster from the doorway and walls flying everywhere. Eric and Tara are crouched behind a wall between 2 doorways that are illuminated by hoverlight searchlights. The hoverlight is firing bullets through the 2 doorways, in turn to prevent Eric and Tara from escaping. Twinkle looks down the corridor to see Eric and Tara cowering and shielding themselves from debris and ricocheting bullets. Claudia is hit at the end of the corridor near the blocked door. Twinkle enters a room and sees a hoverlight shooting at Tara and Eric to his right. He fires a rocket at the hoverlight and it hits the hoverlight, exploding one of the lights and damaging the hull. The hoverlight shudders and begins to fall. Twinkle runs back into the corridor as the second hoverlight emerges behind him. Twinkle runs to Eric and Tara, and as he approaches them, he drops his gun and picks up Tara and Eric and holds them to his chest as he runs. The hoverlight spots them and begins to fire streams of bullets, flamethrower and rockets at the running Twinkle, blowing up and setting fire to the walls and path behind him. Twinkle runs towards the blocked door as Claudia leaps to the side. Twinkle leaps and turns his back and smashes through the blocked door, taking down part of the wall with him. Then he runs up the stairs carrying Eric and Tara to the roof. Twinkle puts Tara and Eric down and turns round to the door to go back and get Claudia, but as he nears it, kaboom! An explosion comes from the doorway, stopping Twinkle as he lifts his arm up to guard his face from the fire that blasts out. Tara falls to her knees and cries out, "Claudia!" Twinkle quickly turns round to Tara and Eric again and picks them up again. He runs to the edge of the building and jumps from one roof to another. Then he gets to a part of the building with no floor before them. There, where the ceiling below has given way, forcing him to run on the edge of the building facing the street. An armoured vehicle tears along the street. Inside the vehicle, Matthew and Michael sit anxiously. Then through one of the horizontal viewing slots on the jeep above the soldiers' heads, Michael spots Twinkle running along the ledge of a building. Michael leaps up and looks out of the slot and yells, "Stop!" The armoured vehicle screeches to a halt. Ahead of them, the soldiers and walking machines surrounding the building that Tara and the group were hiding in. The hoverlights hovering in front of the building, shining what lights they have left inside the windows and rooms. The soldier in the front of the vehicle turns around and says, "What is it? What do you see?" The soldiers face Michael, and others look out of the slots themselves. Another soldier shouts, "Hey, there's something on the roof!" Michael turns and raises his gun and shouts, "Matthew, now!" Michael screams and opens fire and shoots streams of lasers at the soldiers in the jeep. Matthew leaps up and joins in. The soldiers jerk and jolt as they fall to the floor as the pair shoot wildly. The soldier in the passenger side goes to open a door to escape as Matthew shoots him in the head. Michael, still screaming, continues to shoot. Matthew says to Michael, "Michael, stop, stop, they're all dead." Michael, breathing heavily, still has his gun raised, and Matthew puts his hand out and lowers it and says, "Well done, kid." Michael blurts out, "It's Twinkle. He was on the roof, come on." Michael turns and opens the door behind him and jumps out. Matthew jumps out and closes the door as Michael runs into a building. Matthew follows and they both begin to climb the stairs. Meanwhile, on the building roof, Twinkle places Eric and Tara down. "Oh, Claudia," says Tara as she sits on the floor. Eric, who stood up, looks over at the building they fled from, and then he looks up at Twinkle, who is also looking. Twinkle then begins to run and jump across the building, then begins to head back to the burning building, and Eric shouts, "Twinkle!" and so does Tara. "Twinkle, no!" Tara holds onto her head and shakes it. Twinkle gets back to the roof of the building they fled, and Twinkle makes his way to the doorway they evacuated. Smoke is pouring out. Twinkle looks down into the destroyed stairs and jumps down into the burning corridor below. Claudia is laid unconscious on the floor along the corridor. Twinkle runs through the flames to get to her. He picks her up, then quickly turns to face the street as searchlight beams through the doorways. Twinkle tightens his grip on Claudia and runs along the corridor towards his gun. He gets to his gun and bends down to pick it up as a group of soldiers appear at the end of the corridor. Twinkle picks up his gun with one hand and positions Claudia away from the soldiers so his body is shielding her. The soldiers see Twinkle amongst the flames and open fire with plasma bullets. Bullets scorch Twinkle's leg and arm as he lets out a loud roar. Twinkle returns fire with a stream of bullets, and the soldiers shake and jerk and crash to the floor dead. Then the searchlights return to illuminate the corridor. Twinkle turns and runs to the exit. The hoplights begin to fire, but as Twinkle goes past the last doorway, he leaps and fires a rocket through the doorway. The rocket flies out of the building right into the cockpit window of one of the hoplights. Twinkle gets to his feet and leaps up the damaged stairs to get to the roof. The hoplite cockpit explodes and the fly machine spins out of control and crashes into the building. The soldiers below begin to run, but a walking machine and some soldiers get crushed as a hoplite crashes and explodes in the street below. As Twinkle gets to the roof, he quickly places Claudia behind the roof doorway building from which they emerged, and clenches a gun in both hands as he runs to the centre of the roof and points his gun towards the direction of the street. Suddenly, the remaining hoplite emerges from the street and shines its remaining lights on Twinkle and begins to shoot at him. Twinkle leaps to the right and returns fire. The hoplite breaks left to avoid being hit by Twinkle's shots of plasma rounds whilst returning fire itself. Twinkle is outrunning the bullets, tracking him, but the hoplite fires a rocket that explodes before Twinkle, sending him flying backwards. But as Twinkle flies backwards, he fires a rocket himself at the approaching hoplite. The rocket explodes, hitting the side of the hoplite's rectangular rear section near one of the propeller wings. The section begins to explode, and the hoplite spins out of control and towards Twinkle. Meanwhile, on the rooftop, some distance away, Tara and Eric are watching as Twinkle gets to his feet. The hoplite crashes into Twinkle and explodes, crashing through the roof. Tara screams, "No!" Tara holds on to Eric and buries her head in his chest.